Hey friends, welcome to Midweek, and thank you so much for joining with us tonight. I hope that this week has found you doing well. I hope that you've been outside enjoying the spring-like weather, because I hear that next week they're going to be calling for snow. And so be out there and just enjoy the time that we have. Hopefully spring is on its way, because it's felt great lately. And if you've been with us for the last few weeks, I challenged us to go through the book of Proverbs together. And we're not studying it on our midweeks, but this is something I want you to do kind of on your own. And what we're doing is there's 31 days in March. There happens to be 31 chapters of Proverbs. Proverbs is the book of wisdom. And so what you're doing is you're reading the chapter that correlates to the day that we're living. And I just want to ask you, how are you doing with that? If you've been following along with us, you should be through chapter 9 right now. But if you're not, that's okay. You can start right now. And so what I want to challenge you to do is write in the comments just what you've been learning through the process, this journey that we've been going through with Proverbs, and just talk about what God is showing you, just some things that are catching your attention, some wisdom that you are learning in the process. And let's talk about that, because that's what these midweeks are all about. It's all about connecting to each other, studying the Bible together, and just loving on one another. And so I just hope that you're investing in yourself and just learning from Solomon, one of the greatest minds that has ever lived. And so I know I'm enjoying it, but let's talk about it. So if you want to write in the comments, that'd be awesome. But we're going to get straight into it tonight, because last week we started a new mini series called The Encounter. And what we're doing is we're walking through different people that Jesus has encountered in the last few moments of his life leading to his death. And so last week we talked about the Last Supper, Jesus washing their feet and all that good stuff. But tonight we're going to talk specifically about Peter. Peter is one of my favorite disciples. And the reason he's probably my favorite is because I resonate with him well. There's a lot that he has going on that I feel like I can relate to. He's a passionate leader, and I lead with passion a lot of the times. The problem is that when we lead with a passionate life, sometimes we get misunderstood. And even though our hearts are in the right place, sometimes our passion distorts what's happening within. And so Peter often gets his foot in his mouth. He often gets to a point where he's misunderstood. He becomes like angry and aggressive, and it's just misinterpreted. But that's how I feel like I can be sometimes. And so I relate well to Peter. I think that he is a great leader, and I aspire to become a lot like him. And so tonight we're going to talk about his life and just how Jesus has encountered with him through the last moments of Jesus' life, and see what we can learn from Peter's example. And so we're going to be in Luke 22 tonight. And I kind of want to set the scene. We're still at the Last Supper. They're enjoying the Passover feast together. They're in the upper room. The disciples begin to argue about who's the greatest. And that's when Jesus begins to wash their feet, if you read the other gospel stories on this account. And so then all of a sudden, Satan begins to ask questions to God. And Jesus has like a front row seat to all this stuff. And so he's saying in real time what's happening to Peter. In fact, you can go ahead and get into it. Look at verse 33. And 31. And Jesus is starting to talk to Peter. He calls him Simon. He says, "Simon, Simon, Satan has asked to sift you as wheat. But I've prayed for you, Simon, that your faith may not fail. And when you have turned your back, strengthen your brothers." But he replied, "Lord, I am ready to go with you. I'm ready to go with you to prison and to death." And Jesus answered, "I tell you, Peter, before the rooster crows today, you will deny 3 times that you even know me." And you see, Peter is in this place where he is walking with a confidence. And I think we get there too sometimes. He's been walking with Jesus for the last 3.5 years. I mean, this is the Son of God. This is the Messiah. This is the one man that all the prophecies of the Old Testament have talked about. He is right here living in the flesh. And for the last 3.5 years, Peter's been able to walk with him. I mean, how much more confidence would you have if you knew that Jesus was literally walking beside you in every situation you walked into? You wouldn't be afraid of anything. Why? Because he can cast out demons. He can heal the sick. Everything that your mind has been programmed not to understand, you've witnessed in the man of Jesus. And so Peter is at this moment where he's like at the epiphany of his faith. And he's saying there is nothing that's going to shake that. And Jesus is warning him. He's saying, "Listen, Pete, I am telling you, Satan is asking to come after you. Because he's looking at your confidence as pride. He's looking at you as somebody who is weak. And he is asking permission to come and attack you with a full force." And Peter says, "Bring it on." He goes, "I'd go to prison with you. I would even go to death for you. So you tell Satan to bring it on." And he completely negates the warning that Jesus is trying to give to him. It goes through one ear and out the other. And Jesus is trying to warn Peter that this is going to be a heavy battle. And Peter just says, I'm ready. Let's do this. And so what happens is Peter's confidence becomes deceptive. And I think that happens to you and I sometimes, to where we get so confident in where our faith is that we feel like we are at the epitome of our relationship to God. And we have moments in our life where things just seem to be great. Our walk with God just seems to be perfect. Everything just seems to be falling into place. We're getting blessed left and right, and we're going to church on Sundays and Wednesdays and all this great stuff. And life just seems to be going very, very well. And the Bible tells us in multiple places, be careful, because it's at the peak of your achievements that you'll fall. There's always something lurking around the corner, waiting to devour you, waiting to plummet after you, waiting to sift you like wheat. And so it's usually at the height of our achievements. It's at where our confidence is at its peak to where it starts to become deceptive. And it doesn't just stop there. After our confidence becomes so strong, Jesus ends up moving out to the garden, right? He's starting to pray. And so he brings his inner circle with him and he says, listen, Peter, James, and John, those are his three guys. He loves all of his disciples, but these were the men that were just like, they were his friends. And he said, you guys stay here for a minute. I'm going to go over there. I'm going to go about a stone's throw away. And I'm just going to have a one-on-one time with my dad. And Jesus goes out. He just pours his heart out to him. And he asks these guys, he goes, you guys need to be praying over here. And so he goes out. He's just pouring it all out. He's saying, God, pass this cup for me. Father, if you will, pass this cup for me. 3 times he asked God to do that. He says, Father, I don't want to do what's about to come, because Jesus knows the prophecies. He's all-knowing. He's got that God part with him. He knows what's about to happen. He knows what he's walking into, and it is terrifying. And so he asked his disciples, his inner circle, he's like, you guys be over here praying while I'm over here praying. And he comes back, and look at verse 45. It says, when he arose from prayer, he went back to the disciples, and he found them asleep. I mean, what a slap in the face, right? When you're asking your 3 closest friends, the people who've been with you through thick and thin for the last 3.5 years, these men that you've entrusted with your life, that they've entrusted with your life, and you just have this bond. I mean, when you need a friend, don't you want them to be there? When you need a friend, don't you want them to show up? And so Jesus just says, can you guys pray for me just for a little bit? And he comes back and he finds them asleep. Now they say in some of the other accounts, they say, listen, Jesus, our spirits were willing. They really were. But our flesh is weak. And Jesus knew that, because he recognized the fact that they're exhausted from weeping, from having sorrow. Like they know what's coming. Jesus is preparing them for it. And then he says, no, you guys need to get up. And he says, you need to start praying so that you don't fall into temptation. And you see, sometimes when we have an overconfident faith that leads to a deceptive mind, our prayers sometimes become distracted in the process, doesn't it? Our prayers become distracted. And when we think that we are walking with Jesus with a level of righteousness, we don't take serious our prayer life much anymore. We're like, well, Jesus, hey, good to see you. Good night. And, or we don't even get that far. We just say, hey, God, and we fall asleep, because we're so confident to where we are with our walk with God that we feel like we don't have to communicate to him very much anymore. We feel like we're walking hand in hand with God, but yet we don't have to keep that relationship alive anymore. And I don't know about you with your relationships, but I know the ones that I'm heavily invested in, they're heavily invested back with me, right? It doesn't go 100% you and 0% them. That's not a friendship, right? A friendship is you both coming in together, where they're putting in effort, you're putting in effort. And sometimes as an adult with a family, that's really tough to do. But when you have a friend that you desperately care about, you make the effort to be a friend to them. And there's sometimes, guys, that I fail at that. And I know you do too, because we find many ways that get in the way of that. We have children, we have spouses, we have jobs, all these things that take our time. So trying to invest even 10 minutes a week with somebody can be daunting at times. And so I know that I've been a bad friend at moments of my life, and I've had people who've been bad friends to me in moments of my life. But you see how the overconfidence in our faith can lead us to a distracted prayer life, to where we just feel like everything's good, but yet we don't even know that there's a huge issue that's coming, because we're so blind to it, because our confidence is up here. And that's where Peter's at. And through that overconfidence and through that distracted prayer comes the third thing we see from Peter, which comes from verse 54. Now they've come and they've seized Jesus. Judas has brought the people. They've betrayed him. And it says this in verse 54, then seizing him, they led him away and they took him into the house of the high priest, and Peter followed at a distance. Did you catch that? Peter followed at a distance. And so this overconfident faith that leads to distracted prayers, eventually, if it's not checked, will lead you to distracted following, where you begin following Jesus from a distance. You're no longer that person who had that overconfident faith. You're the person questioning whether you even have faith at all. And all these things about the world start crashing in. Your world starts crashing apart, and you get diagnosed with a medical illness. Financially, you just start to crumble, and it seems like at the peak of your moment, the whole world crashes down around you. That's Satan's plan. And so as the world starts to crash around you, you begin to still follow Jesus. You're just not as close as you thought you were. And so you start following from a distance. And you can see Jesus way up ahead as he's being, taken away by the guards. But it's like you don't want anyone to know that you're a Christian. And it's like you have your friends over here, and they start to say, I thought you went to church on Sundays. Yeah, I used to. I'm just getting busy. And you see how our life, if we're not careful, if we don't pay attention to that, can always lead us to following from a distance. And I got to be honest, that's not a life that I want. I don't want to be a guy who says, well, Jesus is way up there and you're stuck over there. What's the issue? I want to be the guy who's at the dinner table with Jesus saying, I will go to you. I will go to death with you. I will go to prison with you. Wherever you go, I will go. I want to keep that confidence. But the truth of the matter is that's hard to do. And if Peter, one of probably the greatest disciples of all time, in my opinion, can fall into this trap so easily, man, what about me? What about me? And so as I look at Peter's life, as Jesus has encountered this moment with him, it makes me really want to question where I'm at with God. And so I've heard it said, and I'm sure you have too, if you really want to know how closely you're following Jesus, pay attention to your prayer. And my guess is right now, most of you probably don't even remember what you pray for. And you try to go to God in the evening, you try to give him the last 10 minutes of your day, but you're lucky to even make it through the amen before you fall asleep. Or maybe you wake up super early in the morning and you're just like, hey God, hopefully it's a good day. And that's the extent of your conversation with God. And if I look at my prayer life and I start to wonder where this is, I'm wondering if people will even ask me if I'm a Christian or not. Would they see that example in me through my prayer life? I don't know. But if Peter so easily falls, I wonder how easy it is for me. And so, friends, I hope that you're having a great week again. I hope that this has challenged you. I hope it's inspired you to start paying attention to the way that you communicate to God. And I just want you to know, we love you here, and we just want to keep walking through life with you. And I know that there are some hard times coming, and maybe you've already walked through a storm, but we are here to walk alongside you. We are here to share life with you. And so I know that sometimes I can be living in a moment where it just seems to be distracted all the time. And so I am wanting to walk through this with you. And so don't ever hesitate to get a hold of us here, as we want to share life with you. And so as we continue through to this Easter Sunday coming up on April 4th, we're going to keep walking through these encounters that Jesus has. And they're going to be fun, but man, they're going to teach a lesson. And so I hope tonight you get this. Pay attention to your prayer, because it's worth it. And it'll show you how close you were following to Jesus. I don't want to be that guy at a distance, and I know you don't either. Take care, friends. We'll see you next time.